Pleased to be joined now by the outlaw Dan Hardy. Greetings, mate. Good to see you again. Really nice to hear that you might be back in action. I've spoken to you a couple of years back now. I know how badly you've been wanting to get in there. And I guess first and foremost, what has prolonged you from getting back in there? Because I know you're absolutely itching to do this for a few years now. So why now? John Wayne Parr is the name. It's an exciting one. It seems like a very exciting matchup, and one championship is the promotion. So firstly, why now? And then why one, and why John Wayne Parr?
Well, why now? Because I've been very busy up until this point. I've been on the road most weekends, commentating, covering UFC events, and obviously since I've parted ways with the UFC, first of all, I got released from my contract as well. That was something I requested, and fortunately, they were able to grant me that release. So I'm now able to start thinking about dedicating my time to something else. And it's just, the fight makes sense. I'd spoke to the UFC a few times about matchups, and they'd suggested some guys that they just didn't interest me. I didn't want to fight them. And the other thing as well is that, I was locked into that old UFC contract, which was, worth about as much as a bag of peanuts. So, that was the other thing, trying to negotiate a fight contract and get more money. The longer I was out, the more difficult that was. So now I've got complete freedom, and I've always loved fighting in Asia. John Wayne Parr has always been someone I've looked up to. It's a fight that makes sense. He's coming towards the end of his career, and he's looking for that 100th win, and I don't want to be that guy. So I just the idea of being able to sign with one as well, and have options of what rule sets to fight under. Cage Muay Thai with small gloves is just, that just sounds like a lot of fun. I don't have to think about defending takedowns and people trying to strangle me and snap my arms. I can focus primarily on what I enjoy doing the most, which is Muay Thai. And then, after what comes next, is it MMA? Is it kickboxing? It opens the door for a lot of things. And there's a lot of guys on the one roster that would be fun matchups, I think.
How did you manage to get out of your UFC contract? Because they're notoriously a bit mean, a bit tight when it comes to letting people out of those. So was that a bit of a struggle?
Well, it was quite interesting because I expected it to be a bit of a struggle, but then, I'd requested a couple of times because I'd asked for matchups. I'd sent Mick and Sean, messages about matching me. And I gave them a list. I said Matt Brown, Carlos Condit, Nick Diaz. They're the names I had in mind. They were the ones I put forward, and nothing came back. And then obviously Matt Brown got matched on a card that was way distant in the future when I'd sent this email. It was kind of like they were telling me they weren't going to match me. So I thought to myself, well, I'll request to get released. That took a couple of emails before I got a reply. But then I mentioned it publicly, and within a couple of days, they just, because the UFC have got so many other things on their plate. The Ali Act's going to go through soon. There's the class action lawsuit going on. There's the changes in the business constantly, issues with champions and top contenders not wanting to fight for what they're worth, and the question of fighter pay coming up. I'm the last of their concerns is to keep me under contract for no reason. So I think in their head, they just thought, well, let's just solve this problem straight away. Give him his release. Maybe they thought they were calling my bluff like I wasn't going to fight. So I'm calling theirs, and I'm going to fight, and I'm going to show them, what I'm capable of, and what those matchups against myself and those names I gave them would have perhaps looked like.
In a way, it's a shame because, those names, any fan would just, those Carlos Condit, Nick Diaz, Matt Brown, those were the kind of matchups that I think, you read all the comments online and the comments on your Twitter. Those were the matchups everyone was hoping for. And they've kind of gone and done it with Robbie Lawler versus Nick Diaz. There's a part of you look at that and think, well, that probably should have been me in there with one of those guys, because that is that generation of classic UFC, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is where the fan comes out of me, and I want to see that fight. That's the truth. I want to see Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler. Of course, I'll be in shape, and if they call me up the week before and say, hey, we need someone to step in, I'll jump on a flight and fight either of those guys. But I'm also big fans of them. And I remember their first fight, which was, back in, double-digit UFCs. And so much has changed since then. I'm just glad they've matched them together. they could have brought Nick Diaz in and matched him up with someone like Hamza, and it just, it would have just rained on his parade. Like, we want to see these veterans celebrated, kind of like what's happening with Triller and, all these other things going on. It's giving, Anderson Silva and Tito boxing. I think a lot's going to change in the sport in the next couple of 3 years. And those names that I've got in mind are still not off the list. I still think they're potential opponents under a variety of different rule sets. And I think when the MMA world opens up in the next few years, I think options will become far more available for fighters generally. So I'll still hold out hope, and I'll still stay in shape as well.
So my latest impression, from what I read, is that this fight is verbally agreed. You've been messaging with JWP. Is anything signed yet? And I know that you're at Rough House, right, in Nottingham. Are you sparring hard? Are you kind of approaching a camp? Where are we at in terms of the fight actually getting booked?
Well, I've spoken to John. John and I are both keen on it. I've not spoken direct to the matchmakers at One yet, but I know they're discussing upcoming events today, actually. They're discussing upcoming events, and I'm expecting to hear from them soon. I have had other offers as well come through from other organizations, but this is the one that I want. It's the one that makes the most sense for me, John Wayne Parr. So I'm hoping we can get something signed and agreed within the next sort of 3 or 4 weeks and move forward. I've started to move myself towards training camp shape, so that's going to take me probably another 5 weeks, and then I'll start moving around a bit heavier with the guys in the gym. But at the moment, my main focus is bringing my conditioning back up to a level where I can hang with those guys in the gym, because they're monsters at the moment. I'd be outpaced by the majority of guys on the mat in these days. Did you watch him against Nikiholstein? Did you enjoy that fight? I mean, he was still throwing spinning stuff. I mean, Niki looked great. What did you make of that, and where JWP's at right now? I mean, he had hip surgery, right? But he still showed that he's got some sharpness. Yeah, I mean, wisdom goes a long way in the combat sports, and I think sometimes the older fighters get, the more wily, the more crafty they get, the better they are at applying the skills that they've got. And even if that skill set is less than what it was when he was in his 20s, or maybe not quite as sharp, the difference in his mindset between now and then will always keep him dangerous and competitive. I'm stepping back in after 9 years out. And John's, been competitive for all that time. So there is an advantage there as well. I thought he looked good against Niki. I just think Niki was better. Niki is better. But it was a great performance by both guys. I wouldn't be ready to step in and face Niki right now. But if I can get through John in a couple of rounds, that's the next one that makes sense. I'll keep stepping up after Niki. I don't know, maybe a MMA or something, but the options are open, aren't they? And there's lots of good potential and opportunities in one. You spoke about, really, you just want big names. You want the challenges that excite you, right? So firstly, you're a welterweight. What does that put you in? One, does that make you a lightweight because of their different weight classes? Does that put you in the same realm as an Eddie Alvarez, maybe? Where, in terms of MMA fights, in terms of MMA names, somebody like that, would that appeal to you? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my plan is to get to the lightweight limit, which obviously, with the hydration testing, I've got to be pretty much bang on 170 during fight week. Which, obviously it's been a little while since I was at that weight. I'm under 200 pounds now, and I'm in decent shape, but I know that I can get the rest of that weight off and be dangerous and in good condition at that weight. And honestly, like, the idea of it, getting back on that road, it is exciting. I like the process of refining myself into fight condition, and to see what I look like when I've exerted that level of discipline on myself. So the challenge of getting down to 170 is almost as exciting as the fight for me. And just out of respect for John Wayne Parr, I would like to step in there, at a weight that is suitable for both of us and healthy for both of us. And of course, on the back of that, I'd be walking around about 175. It opens up a lot of options. There are a lot of interesting fights in that region, from MMA to kickboxing to Muay Thai to boxing to, loads and loads of options. So it makes sense to me to get down there and stay in shape for a couple of years, see what I can do. So
who are the names in terms of MMA? Who appeals to you? Who would excite you and drive you to want to get in that shape? Would it be an Eddie Alvarez, or would it be, you know, someone out of Asia?
I think Eddie's a good pick. You know, I've got a lot of respect for Eddie and for his team. And you know, it would be a fight that would interest the fans. I think one would like it because it would engage the Western audience a bit more, where they're more familiar with the likes of Eddie Alvarez, and you know, he's a former multiple-time champion. He's the king of the underground. It would be a hell of a fight, you know. And the other one that springs out is Shinya Aoki. You know, he's a whole other kind of puzzle to solve. I watched a couple of his recent fights, and he's just as slick as he was, you know, 5-10 years ago. But he's not nearly as reckless anymore. He's so much more measured now. And that'd be an entirely different training camp. I'd have to bring in specialists for that. I'd have to travel a bit more for that. So, you know, like if I'm stepping up the levels, that, you know, that would be another fight on the list.
You said that you've got interest from other promotions. Is Rising on that list? Because I know that you've always been a massive Pride fan, and you fought 3 times in Tokyo. Was it in the mid-2000s? I suppose if you fight for one, you know, Tokyo was big for them at one moment in time with the Century shows. But have Rising been in touch? And you know, is that something you're considering, or are you thinking, well, if I go with one, I can have my my Japanese dream as well?
Well, you know, I mean, I think Rising would be another good destination. I've had a bit of back and forth with them through my manager, but nothing as the way in the way of matchups so far. I mean, I always wanted to fight in Pride, and you know, Gomi's always been someone I looked up to, and I think there are a few good Japanese legends that could maybe step in and excite the fans. You know, some names from back in the day. It would definitely be an option. I mean, I've got a pair of the Rising gloves in my gym, and they fit well. I will say that. But then again, so do the One Championship gloves. So, you know, it's a good option. Yeah, absolutely. Japan's a very special place for martial arts, and for MMA in particular, with what Pride represents in the sport. So to be able to have an experience, something similar to that, and to get some of those Rising gloves fight worn would be quite nice, especially if they punch Gomi in the face a couple of times.
I've got 2 more for you. Well, one, we've seen Misha Tate in the booth. We've seen her be a VP, Rich Franklin. You're a multi-talented individual. You're very good at commentary. So surely, and you've done kind of bits and pieces of media with one already. Could that be an attractive package for you, basically, that we'll see you in the booth, we'll see you doing a bit of media and then jumping in the cage as well?
I don't see why not. You know, I don't see why not. I always enjoy commentating, and I will commentate again in the future. It's been nice to kind of sit back for a little while and focus on my other projects, but I would like to commentate again at some point in the future. And you know, obviously, if I've fought inside the one circle, then sitting outside of it with a microphone would also make a lot of sense. But you know, my options are open. I've had a couple of other organisations reach out about that as well. Conversations which are ongoing. So my options are still open there, as well as doing a bit of work in boxing. So honestly, it was like the one big door swung shut and about 15 others opened immediately. So it's exciting times. I'm just I'm trying to navigate my way through a lot of things at the moment. But you know, it's the home of martial arts, isn't it? One Championship, and to return to Asia to be able to fight in front of the Asian fans would be something pretty special.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have options. We hope to see you out here very soon. I just wanted to ask you finally, as a Cage Warriors alumni and kind of one of the biggest ambassadors for British and Irish MMA, is it mad to you seeing Conor and Bisping going at it this week? Like, what is going on there?
I don't know. You know, each day I wake up and I'm boiling the coffee while I'm looking through my Instagram, just thinking, my goodness, what is going on? It seems to be somebody new each day. You know, I don't know. I mean, I think, to be honest, a part of the problem is that fighters, especially once they've retired, there is a little bit of that. You know, there's a bit of bite in them still. So if somebody nips at them, they're going to bite back, and that's what we're seeing from DC and from Bisping. And you know, he knows who to go after. You know, he knows who to provoke. He's very calculated with what he does, but he's keeping his name relevant and in social media at the same time as you know, sitting there with a cast on his leg. So I mean, this is him working right now, and he's doing a good job because people are talking about it. I mean, you know, he's an exciting character. It doesn't really matter who he's beefing with; people are interested. But yeah, I think sometimes maybe the commentators shouldn't rise to the bait too much.
Yes, well, you know what I mean. They're all fighters at the end of the day, I guess. But Dan, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. I can't wait to see you out here. I hope it does happen. JWP is a legend as well. It should be a cracker.
Thank you, mate. It's good talking to you again.